We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you if I don't say the words that make...
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the professionals, and I've got a double version of the Mitchells this morning. Good morning to George.
Hello,
good
everybody.
morning to Neil. Stu working today and keeping the wheels of industry turning. So we've got just under an hour today because I've got to shoot off, and we've all got busy days ahead. But let's start with the breaking news about Bruno getting his new contract. George, great news. Something that seems to have dragged on a little bit from a fan's perspective, because news got out that it was imminent, and then people were asking, why hasn't it happened? What's going on? Is there an issue? Is that why Bruno is not playing like he was last season? Blah, 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 blah. But the 25-year-old Brazilian has agreed a 4.5-year deal, and that keeps him on Tyneside now until 2028. Extension and improved contract, which will be good news for him and his family. But yeah, it's a big one. It's like signing a new player, really, because he's been one of the catalysts along with Kieran Trippier since the takeover 2 years ago, in making Newcastle United what they are today. Yeah,
and people also forget that when he came, there was quite a few people said, Bruno, who? And he's been magic, absolutely magic. It shouldn't surprise people in the modern world that contract negotiations now are complex. It isn't just about the player anymore. You've got to keep the agent happy. You've got to keep the family happy. And the club's got to work very hard to get the thing over the line. So it's no surprise that it took a little bit longer. I am surprised that people thought that somebody like Bruno would be affected by all of that. What he did was, like all players, went through a period where he was carrying this terrible ankle injury, carried for nearly half a season. There was all of that going on. He was recovering from that. So I don't give much credence to the fact that he wasn't playing well because his contract negotiations were going on. That's why he pays professionals to look after him. They do all the negotiating, not Bruno himself. So good news. It's fantastic news because it sets the standard, doesn't it? Those that are following him will have now got a standard to aim for and to negotiate for. And good luck to them. You know, he's good, but there's a lot around him who I want to see in black and white shirts for a long time as well. And there's one or two in black and white shirts that have been in black and white shirts for a while, have earned themselves a reward as well in terms of going forward for new contracts. So it's fantastic news, Steve. It sets the standard for everybody else, and I couldn't be happier that Bruno's. Bruno's a Geordie's a real thing now. There's no doubt about that. And couldn't be happier, Steve. Couldn't be happier.
Great news, Mitch. Another positive news story coming out of St James's Park. We've had a lot of them in the last 2 years.
And a wonderful way to announce it. The discussion with his dad. That whole integration of that he's delighted from a family perspective shows what kind of character he is, I think he does wear his heart on his sleeve sometimes. His little snapback on Twitter a few weeks ago suggests that he does sometimes carry stuff like this. And also his celebration after the goal at Sheffield United, it was almost Wolf of Wall Street, like, you know, I'm staying, I'm not going anywhere. But equally, while his team's in the middle of a contract negotiation, he cannot probably subject to NDAs, not say too much. And so, for the fear of messing it up, people getting upset about release clauses. Release clauses protect the club and the player, and are commonplace these days. And you have to look at it from an FFP perspective. We don't know what the conditions of that release clause is. Is it 100 million plus up front? There's not many teams can do that. And if it was 100 million up front, that turns at least 3, if not 4 Brunos, if you spread that across FFP payments. So the club then gets protected. And we'll probably talk a little bit about how you can be clever in that when we talk about West Ham, looking how they've replaced Rice. I think they've replaced Rice very cleverly and used the money they got from an FFP perspective very, very wisely. We also don't know what the terms and conditions of that release clause are. Does it have to be a Champions League club? Can it not be a club from England? Can it be, you know, there could be so many things in there that I would urge anybody getting the knickers in a twist about it, just forget about it. He's here, he's ours, he wants to be here, and he'll be here as long as he wants to be. So win-win as far as I'm concerned. And there'll also be a time lapse on that release clause. There'll be only a certain period when that'll be active. And once that fades away, it's gone. So, hey, don't worry about it. He's ours. He wants to be, everybody's happy. And we're now reaping the rewards on the pitch again.
Yeah. Yesterday wouldn't have escaped anyone's attention. It was the 2-year anniversary of the takeover. 2 years, George. Where's that gone? But from our perspective, just a time of reflection, but also a time to see how far we've come, and we've come a long way, George.
Well, certainly have. It's. I mean, I'm sitting here with Neil on here, and yourself, and Steve Hastie's, being closest oppo at the match, and I've lived through 5 years, 6 years of negotiations with all sorts of people. People I've arranged to meet the Lord Lieutenant and all sorts of things just to get them into Newcastle to come and have a look and talk about the takeover. When it did happen, when it has happened, it happened very quickly, and we can't talk about this without mentioning Keith Patterson. Keith opened the door, in my view. We joke about the letter, but the letter was important. Opened the door, and once they got into it, they made sure that they were going to get it. And our driver, the lady that's the boss, if you like to call Amanda Staveley, has made it plain from. I know she gets labelled with trying to do Liverpool and all this sort of thing. She has been very loyal supporter of Newcastle United, and those that come with her are as well. And so we've got a team, an ownership team that took over very quickly, very quietly, and have done things amazingly. I mean, I remember. There's also some weird things as well. Remember the day it was announced and people were going up to St. James's Park with their tea towels on their heads to pretend to be Arabs. And the note alls here was saying, don't take them off, you're insulting them. And back home in Saudi Arabia, people were saying, yes, do it, we'll love it. Who's right? That sort of complication. And I think, as you know, I've said to you both, I from the minute it started, I've embraced the takeover, all this stuff about the geopolitical stuff. I don't ignore it. I embrace it because I want to help to change it. And guess what? They're going to take away the drink ban if they get the World Cup. Now, isn't that a start? I think Newcastle could claim a part of that, actually. So, no, it's fantastic 2 years. And for somebody like me that's been around such a long time, to have the feeling of joy and happiness about me team, that's what matters. And it just gets better after Wednesday night, It's absolutely amazing. Congratulate them for what they've done. Everybody's saying we're 2-3 years ahead of where they thought we would be. Well, I think that's an impression. But where you are is where you are. you know, if you've done the work, you've done the hard yards, you get the rewards, and that's what they're getting. They're getting rewards for doing the hard yards and trusting in Eddie Howe and his methods and all of that sort of thing. So no, it has flown, but it's flown for a good reason. That's because we've all been so happy and pleased at what's happening to our team after 14 years of dross. I mean, really has been awful. Apart from, you know, the smiles that Rafa gave us, but in the last 14 years, we deserve something to smile about. And the last 2 years have been the smiles coming back for me, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Can't thank them enough, and all the people that have supported them, and the playing staff, the way they've fastened onto the new ideas that Howe brought in. They've obviously had to respond because it evidences on the pitch. You know, people like Murphy and Shaw and others who, and Longstaff, who couldn't even get a kick for Steve Bruce. They're now being talked about as global stars. Who would have thought that was the same Fabian Shaw on Wednesday night that we've been getting hammered when he was playing with Steve Bruce? No, 2 years of absolute bliss, Steve, as far as Newcastle United's concerned. It would have been nice if we'd won the Carabao Cup. The important thing is we got to a final. We actually demonstrated we can get to a final, and that's a good start. So fantastic, Steve. It's gone quickly, but it's gone quickly for the right reasons.
CC put a message in at the start of the show saying, not only are Newcastle fans experts in structural engineering and specialists in stadium expansion, we're also financial advisor experts in the finer details of football contracts now. When will we relax and let the people being paid well to do their jobs and take care of it? They've done a pretty good job so far after 2 years. And I think we'd all agree, Mitch, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. In a conversation you and I had through the week, it certainly had me looking very reflective, not just at the last 2 years, but probably at the last 15.
Yeah.
And that journey that you, I, and Steve have been on, effectively trying to get Mr. Ashley out of the club was the catalyst for that. And so here we are 2 years after, and it still sometimes is hard to take in. But I'm obviously going down to Brooklyn this afternoon to watch with the Dubai Mags, and it sounds like we're going to have another full house again this afternoon. We had nearly 100 out at midnight through the week. That's unheard of on a school night for Dubai Mags. 30 or 40 is usually seen as a good turnout or a midweek game. We're at 100 plus by the time the game kicked off, and it was mental. There was definitely a few sore heads and definitely a few sickies taken. I'm quite sure of that the next day. But here's where we are. Not just making waves in the UK for the right reasons, but making waves on a global football stage, and that's hugely significant, and only really possible with the kind of profile that we've created on the pitch and off the pitch. The display from War Flags and in association with Seller and the drones through the week had tongues wagging in this region. And it's just a fraction of what's possible. You know, I remember people getting upset because Seller's website was a bit shit and there was only one page on it in English, I think. Don't worry about it. That's still a very understanding how business works here in the Middle East it's so very, very different. I can show you multi-million-dollar companies who've got crap websites out here. They're still multi-million-dollar companies and still know how to do things properly. I think comment there about what would happen without FFP constraints, I think would be flattening people left, right, and centre. I think if the shackles were ever to come off, and it's partly why people ask why I keep abreast of all the football finance stuff. Well, partly because in the last 14, 15 years, I've been dragged down that rabbit hole and then some. But partly because these things will ultimately impact over here, an impact on Newcastle United. Because if Chelsea, for example, are deliberately failing FFP to blow a hole in FFP, the shackles will eventually come off. If Everton are seen to get away with murder in terms of the financials, then again, there'll be a decision to make at some stage and say, well, if that's just a financial penalty, let's just do it. And we still have the various Man City cases looming, which keep getting kicked down the road. But that'll have to come to pass eventually. And I think personally think it's only a matter of time before FFP rules effectively are blown apart in the English game anyway. What happens in Europe, you just never know, because Europe is so complex. I nearly used the word corrupt there. It's probably not a word I should use openly, but there you go, it's just slipped out. Europe is a different kettle of fish, for sure. But I think we always have to keep one eye on what's going on in the wider footballing world. It's why I'm still interested in Klopp's idea that his game against Tottenham should be replayed, which would that would dismantle football at its very, very core if that was to be allowed to happen. And it won't be allowed to happen. I don't think even they can wangle that as the way they have. But what they have done is managed to get rid of an absolutely awful referee from officiating for them for the rest of the season. So there's a little tick in the box for them there, isn't there? You know,
Yeah.
and I think this is the complex political football world we're in, and that's why our owners don't fear it, because we've seen from day one the geopolitical things being thrown around. That still happens when it suits and when it's convenient. There still seems to be this thrust that money coming from trust funds in America is good money, and anything else that comes from the Middle East is bad money, etc., etc. These narratives will slowly change over time when people wake up and see what's actually going on behind the scenes. However, by then our game have been dismantled beyond repair. Hopefully not. But, you know, and all of this comes out of, over the last 2 years, we have had to become everything from financial experts to plane spotters to contract writers to geopolitical insiders, to you name it. We've almost had to have a subtle nuance on everything that we do, just in case we tread on a landmine and set something off. Almost to the point where people seem to want to throttle the joy out of supporting Newcastle United. And I tell you what, on Wednesday night, what I saw here in Dubai was pure, unadulterated, hedonistic joy. And let's have more of it.
Okay, good stuff. Lots to talk about, and a few topic suggestions from you guys in the chat, which is great. The interesting one, I think, from Barry is, love the court offside comments this morning, saying Burn and Shaw are in the twilight of their career. Do you think with the amazing performance of Lascelles recently, George, we would look at a striker instead in January? I think this is an interesting point because, of course, Stu and Mitch have championed Lascelles for many a show since the start of the season. He has been, like probably Dan Burn is now, looked on as a scapegoat in the past. He hasn't played that many games, of course, under Eddie Howe, but he's been biding his time, still been the captain of the club, and notable that whenever he's played in the team, Trippier has handed the captain's armband back to him, which says a lot about Trippier. And he's come in some really big games, Manchester City at home in the Carabao Cup, PSG at home in the Champions League, and put in masterful performances. I mean, we're seeing a renaissance of his career here. Like, it's a rebirth of Jamal Lascelles, and he was never a bad player, but he looks even better than he was before. So, interesting question from Barry. Do you think Lascelles has eased the pressure on Newcastle potentially having to bring in a centre half in the January window?
Well, yes, especially as it wasn't just him against Paris Saint-Germain and against Burnley. When I looked at that team sheet and I saw Lascelles and Dummett as centre-backs, I thought, well, Dummett hasn't played centre-back for ages. And yet, even he was outstanding in many ways. So, yeah, for me, Lascelles deserves everything he gets. Because he's been club captain, sitting and waiting, sitting quietly, watching it all happen around him, and not a squeak outside to the press or anybody else about being unhappy, about wanting a deal elsewhere. And when offers have been made, he's kept quiet about all of that. No, he's been an exemplar professional in my view. He's done his job and gone on with it, helped his mates, helped the lads that he's captain of. And Trippier does make a point of giving them the armband, and that says a lot about Trippier as well. You're absolutely right. No, it is like a renaissance. But if he was alone, it would be incredible enough. But he's not. You know, there's all the others that have come out of the shells because of the way we're doing things now, like Murphy, like Shaw, like Longstaff. You know, it isn't just Lascelles. So there's something happening there which is good. And if Eddie Howe sees Jamal Lascelles as club captain and still producing something good that helps the team, helps the dressing room, then he deserves the rewards. I think it does take pressure off deciding where we'll buy and what we'll buy. I think as always the recruiting team will buy what they think's right. Obviously, you know, we have an opinion about that, but at the end of the day, it's up to them. But it would be nice to have another young striker sitting on the sidelines ready to come in, because of the periodic times that Callum Wilson, his muscles and so on, his sinews are starting to show their age, and he already had problems with them. It would be nice to have another choice. Frankly, I think we've unearthed another choice accidentally in Anthony Gordon, I think, but that's another issue. So yes, I think it does take the pressure off, in my view, from having to do something. You know, when you're desperate to do something, that's when you make mistakes. Well, we don't need to be desperate. We've seen what we're capable of and what's around. And a couple of these new lads that have come in look absolutely fantastic for the future, and will be knocking on the door of the first team quicker than some people think. So yeah, the short answer to Barry's question is I think it does take the pressure off, and because it's when you're desperate, when you want to get somebody through the door, because we've seen it over the years. And we've bought some cart horses on the fact that we're desperate to have something. Yeah, well, you lads can name them better than I can, but we've seen it. You know, we want a striker, so we'll buy this one. We want a defender, so we'll buy that one. In 6 months, they're gone. Well, this is lift that off. You know, the recruitment team can choose, which is the big thing for them. They've time to choose rather than buy things on the nod. No, I think it does. To answer to Barry, yes, it does take the pressure off, Barry, and I think you're right. It gives them time to think what they do want and who they want, more importantly.
John asks a question there, Mitch. Can Lascelles be added to the list, which includes Joe Linton, Miggy, Shawnee Longstaff? The improvement looks significant and is testimony to his professionalism.
Couldn't agree more. John. I think that's a very pertinent point.
Yeah.
Tyne was something actually I was going to mention. Let's give credit to both Lascelles and Sheikh, who effectively were our first choice centre-back pairing on my last trip to the Championship. Mm-hmm. And here they are, central to putting PSG to the sword. They can't do that without developing as people and as players. And if you want a good example of, go and hunt out. There's a squad picture of Hoffenheim where Sheikh and Joe Linton are stood together. And if you hunt out a picture of Lascelles when he first came to the club and look at them now, I would suggest to you they're in the best physical shape of their lives. And they've developed that and done that here. And yes, from a centre-back perspective, we do need to be looking at succession planning. We probably do need a younger right-sided centre-back looking down the line. However, we've got young Alex Murphy, who was involved in pre-season, the same way Miley was involved in pre-season. And if I remember right, Miley's maybe only 2 or 3 years younger than Botman. There you go. Is that the same guys we've got now? I would suggest they're both fitter, stronger, and have developed as footballers and people. Good find, Steve.
Yeah.
You'll have made Sam happy this morning.
and so, you know, it's a testimony to the fact that we've got young kids around the squad now who we could hope develop, but also we've got the ability to bring somebody in, and maybe he's looking at that centre-back option can be slotted into the summer if they feel we need more cover up front. Yes. These things are always fluid depending on how things go. You know, imagine Imagine Megley come into midfield against Man City, and he did, he did, for his age and his debut, he did really well. But what if he'd absolutely turfed Man City? He'd scored 1 and made 2. Would be clamouring for him to be involved in the first team squad every week. And you only need somebody like that to come through, and it changes the whole sort of architecture of the squad. And so along the way, we'll have to make decisions about when we pull the trigger on certain players and not. And if they feel comfortable with the cover that we have for the Premier League, then maybe the January focus could be different.
Okay, injuries may force our hand in the January transfer window.
Yeah.
You're right, David. And John replying just says, exactly what I was thinking, Mitch. Lascelles looks fit as a butcher's dog. That photo you've just put up says it all. Eddie and his team should take a bow. And obviously, Fabian Scher still has his admirers in the chat as well. Okay, slightly shorter show this morning, but we have to chuck the ads in. So here you go. And make sure you watch them because they're very important. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order yours today by emailing info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephoning 01768 210 102. Or go to the website, mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks as well to United Group Travel. They are a UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. For just £30 deposit, you can book a trip across the UK. There are no strangers on their buses, just friends you haven't met yet. They are taking bookings now for 2024 tours, and you can call them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174 or 07957 141 654. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And a big thanks as well to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. Please subscribe to the channel. All you need to do is hit the subscribe button. It's free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel financially, why not take out a one-off £25 membership? What do you get for your money? You get a scarf, you get a pen, you get a membership card, and a cup, and you get entry into the monthly draw. How do you do it? Go to NUFCmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, put your smartphone over this QR code, and it will take you straight there. We also support the food bank on this channel. How do we do it? We do it virtually. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the website. If you want to make a virtual donation today, go to that website and you can top up what they collect at the food bank outside the ground. We always advertise events on this channel as well. If you've got an event to advertise which has got a Newcastle United theme, please let us know. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson takes place at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £15. NUFCmatters.com for your tickets. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are holding an event with Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle, the class of 84, 25th of January 2024. And you can book now 0844 249 1000. That's 0844 249 1000. If you go to NUFCmatters.com as well, we've got a couple of raffles ongoing. The Alan Shearer signed ball raffle, £1 a ticket. And the Kieran Trippier picture, £1 a ticket for that as well. And once the tickets are sold, the draw will be done. We've also got some T-shirts, which you can buy. The latest one, the latest hot seller is this one. Geordie's on tour. I've never seen a Mackham in Milan T-shirt with all of our Champions League fixtures on the back. Get yourself to NUFCmatters.com. Buy one today. And don't forget the Northeast Brekkie Show, 7 till 9, Monday to Friday on tuneradio.co.uk. You can also get us on DAB Radio, smart speakers, app, and online. Happy birthday to Alan McKenzie. I'm not sure if it's today or tomorrow, but you're on holiday, I know. So have a great time with Mozza and enjoy the match today. I know you're going out to watch it, so have a great time and happy birthday. And I hope you have a lot more birthdays. This is a good question from Michael. He says, if we as a club are compared to a 100-floor skyscraper, George, what level are we on now?
100th floor skyscraper where we are. Whoa, we're at 90 for me. We're not far off the top. It wouldn't take much to turn me up to the top. So at least 90 in my view.
Okay, same question to you, Mitch.
Depends if you're following building regulations in the UK or Dubai. I think I would say we'll get to 100 once we put some silverware in the cabinet.
Yeah.
I think that's just the grand opening once that happens.
Okay,
that's the way I would put it.
Simple answer to a simple question. That there's a couple in for you, Mitch. Here, this one from Phil. He says, during the week it was announced that Sheikh Jassim consortium will not up their offer. Am I alone in thinking this is their way of quietly walking away before they're found wanting?
I find it interesting because they're now referred to as a consortium, and it never was a consortium. It was always just Sheikh Jassim. And it just shows the whole make it up as you go along involvement with it. I was quietly told by somebody who I've got no reason to disbelieve that somebody from the sports ministry finally got involved with Jassim's bid and was horrified that he'd agreed to go to 5 billion, let alone try and increase it, that he didn't see the value in Man United at that, and that they weren't interested in going forward at Man United at that. Is it their way of quietly saying, yeah, we're walking away now? Yeah. Everybody in this part of the world likes to walk away feeling that they've won on their terms, even if it's a no-win. They certainly won't admit defeat, but they will walk away.
Okay, and go on, George. Yeah, you chip in.
Yeah, because what gets me about all of that is that we've had the pleasure of having Neil and Steve and yourself occasionally chipping into what's been happening at Manchester United. And all I've done is listen to what they say, go onto the website, and it doesn't take you half an hour to find that it's all smoke and mirrors. So why aren't the professional journalists doing that and telling, well, tell the Manchester United fans, this is tripe, you're being sold a pup. Because I could find out about it from what the lads have told us. And I just find all of that. These things are what's really got me worried about football. All these financial things. Ordinary supporters just getting fed up of being fed all this sort of dross. And if I was a Manchester United fan, if I had here, I'd be tearing it out with what's happened with this lot. And it just beggars belief for me that professional journalists who have all this facilities at their fingertips can't find out who this person is, what he's worth, what he's doing. I could, from what the lads have told me, and I just find that incredible.
Okay, good question. I'm going to have Melly on this week, so we'll get his take on what he thinks about all of that. He says sick as a chip reading his social media, that's for certain. Barry says, considering the spending improvements taking place in the Saudi League with all the investment, what does the average Newcastle Saudi fan think about financial fair play? Is it a joke to them, Mitch, do you think?
It's not seen as a joke, but it's a frustration. It's a frustration in the Arab world. If you talk to any owner from this part of the world, I'm quite sure if you got them to speak off the record, they would say, quite simply, it's my money and I want to spend it how I like. Because that's what they do here. And to be thrust into a situation where somebody totally independent is putting some sort of arbitrary ruling on how you spend your cash is anathema to the way business works in this part of the world. It's my money and I'll spend it how I want. You can go on Amazon here and pretty much order anything you want. I'm going to have a Lamborghini and an eagle's beak, a host of Vestel versions and 300 jumbo jets, please. And somebody will deliver it on the back of a motorbike tomorrow. And I will spend that money how I want to spend it. And so it'll be a frustration for QSI, who own PSG. It'll be a frustration certainly for the owners of Man City, which I suspect is why they tried to flex as many ways as possible to get around those rules in the early days, which is why they've got so many cases pending on them, etc., etc. And I think simply because the attitude here is it's my money and I want to spend all of it, thanks. So the frustration, I think, is the word I would use.
What about you, George? What's your take on that? I mean, it's an interesting one about the Saudi league and financial fair play, etc. But I mean, it must seem a bit crazy to them.
Well, it must be balmy to them, as Neil says. They're used to doing business in a particular way, and the particular way is you want that much money for that. I'm going to buy it, and here's my money. End of story. What's to argue about? FFP just interferes with all of that normal business practice, which must be very frustrating because you're talking to people who are not used to dealing in tens of millions. You're talking about people who are used to dealing in hundreds of millions every day of the week sometimes. So yeah, it must make them it must seem very strange to them. That this is accepted as a business practice both in Europe and in the UK, if Neil's absolutely right. If they've got the money, they'll spend it and they'll buy what they want, but they're not going to have a third party tell them how to do it, when to do it, how much it's going to cost, what limits there are on how many times you can do it a year and all that sort of thing. Absolutely hopeless to their perspective. I mean, I'm not obviously never as close to it as Neil is, but you know, it's clear when you're out there that things are done quite differently. Well, quite differently the way they are here now, but very similar to what we used to be 20, 30 years ago. It's just odd, and they must think it's odd as well. So.
I'm gonna shut my camera down, lads. I'm gonna stay because the internet I'm on is I'm on my phone at the moment. Can you hear us all right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just knock that off for now. I've got a couple of other points to come in. Krista sent this one in. If we win at Old Trafford and then get Liverpool the next round, I think it may be a boost to us beating the big clubs early. What do you think, lads? It's interesting because Eddie Howe we mentioned this on the show last week about potentially stuttering against the big boys, and is that a mental block that Newcastle have? How do you overcome that kind of thing? But Krista's got a point. I think that we've beaten Manchester City once. Yes, we've lost against them. But if we can go to Manchester United, Old Trafford, knock them out the Carabao Cup, get a win against Liverpool this season, get a win against Arsenal, that's going to put us in good stead, and that's going to grow. We're going to grow confidence, Mitch, when we end up in cup finals against these teams, because there is that feeling, I guess, that's the one thing we do need to overcome, this freezing in the headlights on the big occasion.
Yeah, but I think as witnessed on Wednesday night, we've got that in with. And we've shown that now. And I think any game against a so-called big club now, if we can't look back on what we've just done to PSG, then we need our heads looking at it. If that can't free the shackles, if we can't start believing in ourselves now after that, we never will. We've just taken one of the top teams in Europe and properly demolished it. Not just beat them, properly demolished them. And so therefore, if we can't take positivity out of that going forward against whoever we play, in whatever round, home or away, then there's something severely lacking.
Yeah, I would agree. We need to beat these big teams, George, and that's going to come, isn't it? And that comes with confidence and, like the other night, the Champions League's probably going to help because we're going in against bigger teams, better teams.
Well, Wednesday night was a pointer for all of the lads on the pitch as well. This is what we're going to do now. You know, these are the big boys, and we've just showed them what to do, and that's got to be the same with other things. The other thing I have to say, as an old-fashioned FA Cup lover, the mantra's always been the same: you beat whoever they stick up in front of you. Doesn't matter whether it's a Liverpool, a Manchester United, or an Arsenal. You've got to beat them. You know, whether you beat them in one of the rounds or you beat them in the final, is matterless. You've got to get them out of the way. In some ways, if you can get them out of the way earlier, fantastic. That makes a run to the final even more exciting, because the chances are you're going to play somebody who you would normally beat anyway. So no, I think we will get to the stage where. Well, I think we're at the stage now where you can tell when Klopp starts to squeal when he comes near us, and and Guardiola says all the lovely things he does about we're nearly there. We've got them worried, and that's very important. Don't forget, Manchester City only failed to score twice last season against one team, us. Haaland only failed to score against one team, us. When Lascelles was centre half as well, by the way. So if we're capable over that, we've got to translate it into the games that matter. And I think we will. After Wednesday night, there's no reason why we shouldn't. And the additions we've got that are able to change things slightly for, like Tonali, like Anthony Gordon, the lad we got from Leicester. They're all going to be a vital part of doing all of these things. And I think we've nothing to fear against anybody. But the bottom line for the FA Cup is you beat whoever put up in front of you. And even if we go along with the conspiracy theory about the balls being in the freezer box in the fridge, that doesn't matter a jot. You've still got to beat them.
Interesting one from John. He says, Mitch, did Wednesday change your view? We might be significantly better than we thought, and it's not like we were average beforehand.
All it's done for me is give everybody an opportunity to have a bit more belief. Probably myself included. Because the thing that people still aren't really talking about is we did that with 5 injuries. Our squad's only going to get better, and that's before January transfer window. And so that's what I take away from that, is that we've got more strength in depth clearly than we realise. That those players who've just kept their mouth shut, got on with it, trained hard, worked hard for the manager. They get their chances, they come in and they take their chances. And it's probably, I don't know if I've ever seen a squad with that capability in my time watching Newcastle United. So that's what I take from it. It's the ability to a bit more belief to be shared between everybody without coming across as the tired old Geordie expectations that people will trot off of you. If we're not allowed to believe after that game, then God, football's lost all its soul.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, George, isn't it? John saying that, did Wednesday change your view? We might be significantly better than we thought. It's not like we were average beforehand. I think it's a valid point. But we knew we were good last season. I think the big doubt this season was how we were going to cope with the squad rotation, how we were going to cope with the travelling to these European games. I love the fact that the media changed the narrative this week as well, segueing off into something slightly different, which was prior to the PSG game, it was the group of death. PSG were one of the best teams in the world. We were probably going to get mullered by one man in that team, and that was Kylian Mbappe. Then when we beat them comprehensively 4-1, the media are saying, well, it's not the same PSG, I mean, really, PSG is pretty average in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they're in a tin pot league. It did have me chuckling that this week. It wasn't lost on me, that.
Well, me neither, Steve. I think I said to you before the match, the prediction that PSG do play in what compared to the Premiership is a tin pot league. And that was on our side, as I was convinced the last 20 minutes, they would be blowing down their ear holes. They wouldn't be able to keep up with our fitness levels and so on. So it hasn't changed me much for me after Wednesday. What it's done, it's confirmed some things. It's confirmed we've got a manager who thinks really deeply about the game. We've got a manager and coach and staff that are prepared to try things. Yes, we're all having a laugh and being fairly critical about Pope and his goal kicks, but there was a method in the madness. That's the important thing. He was prepared to try those things, and he's persuaded players to enjoy their game. You can see it in their faces. How many times on Wednesday night when the ball went out and the player was near the touchline or the goal line, were they geeing the fans up? I mean, Anthony Gordon give a goal kick because he chased the ball to the byline, and then he spent the next 2 minutes waving his hands at the fans to get them cheered up. I mean, they're obviously enjoying every minute, and that's new. I'm tired of seeing Newcastle players, good players, who were frightened to do that because as much because of the fans as anything else, and the fear was in their faces. I remember being with our Neil at cup tie at Blackburn, and Steve Harper had to come on because the first choice was injured. And Steve Harper was in that goal. He was nearly in tears. You could see it from where we were standing. He was so head up. Well, that's great, but put a smile on your face and enjoy it. And that's the difference for me. It's confirmed. It hasn't changed my view about what's happening. It's confirmed some of the things I hoped was happening. And when it all clicks like that, then we get a result like the one we got and the one we deserved. And there are going to be some teams in the Premiership, if they face that, will find it very difficult. So I'm on the side of not changing my view, but it having confirmed a few things, and I'm pleased that it has.
Interesting one, this, JJ. I'm not sure any of us can answer the question, but do we have any projections of turnover as the big six are on a minimum 450 million? I guess the answer is no, because so much going on at the minute, so many deals which we're not privy to the actual the amounts that are contracted. That'll only come out in the club accounts. So although we could speculate, we couldn't give a definite answer on that, and I think I'm right in saying that. So I think we'll move on from that one. Michael, good question as well. What did you reckon to Rio, Mika, and Cara? I never thought to see the three of them getting behind the team. Rio Ferdinand's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he was a big supporter of Mike Ashley. It's not been forgotten by Newcastle fans, that as well. And of course, Newcastle fans on social media chucking a little bit of friendly stick his way with the situation at Manchester United. But look, the media are getting involved. They've got to, they've got to get involved. They can't deny what they're seeing in front of them, can they, Mitch? That Newcastle United is a team on the rise.
And let's also remember at the time, Rio had a sportswear brand he was trying to launch through Sports Direct.
Yep.
So he was never going to, say anything against Mike Ashley. They're all supposedly football people. And what you're saying is, like any football person, once you get to St James's Park and it starts to get under your skin, you can't help but want to get involved.
Yeah.
How many people from outside the region come to Newcastle as players, or they come to university, or they come for work, and they never leave?
Yeah.
Become adopted Geordies, often marry a lass from the region, and they stay. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to you, Tim Cleave. There's hosts of people you could think of like that. But also, I think if people haven't seen the interview off of the US coverage where Carragher talks to Longstaff about getting Longstaff's number for his son, who was going through similar injury problems to Sean. And these are the things you don't see that go on in the background. The fact that he's gone out of his way to reach out to Sean, and Sean spent the time, like the professional young man he is, to reciprocate that and reach back out. That says a lot about Carragher's gone up in my estimation on the back of that. About how he's looking after his son. He's not telling him, well, I was at Liverpool and I was a pro, this is how we're going to do it. He's letting them find his own way and trying to use the contacts he has to help him find his own way. But then also the fact he felt he could reach out to Sean, and Sean reciprocated in such a way, and he's gone out of his way to make that public. To say, hey, I've watched you tonight score a goal in your home stadium against one of the best teams in Europe, and this is what everybody who's at football at their own club should aspire to. And it's a fabulous 5-6 minute interchange and worth a watch if you can find it on YouTube. I think it's on Peacock on CBS's or NBC rather.
It's on Sky as well, Neil.
Oh, it's on Sky.
Yeah.
I've only seen it off of coverage on YouTube, but it's worth hunting out. And so, no, I'm not surprised. And I mean, also in their pre-match coverage, that Terry Henry in the studio, and I asked, Micah Richards was going on about, I want to be involved with the fan culture. And I said, well, what is the culture? He says, drinking. And Thierry Henry's hiding behind these notes, and Carragher's asking for it to be clipped, to be put on TikTok, you know. And Richards is sitting there going, well, I don't see what I've done wrong. And absolutely, he's done no wrong. He's got it down to a T. And I cannot see any of us being offended by that at all. And it just shows that he is absorbed, probably from spending time with Shearer as well. He'll pick bits up off of Alan, no doubt about that. But to see him absolutely in the heart of it, and Carragher too, was really encouraging. Peter Schmeichel as well, who was doing the American coverage, he, you know, is a lot more sedate and quite a different individual to them. But again, you could feel he was moved by what had happened in the stadium on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's a bit of a U-turn, isn't it, George? Absolutely.
If anybody told me at the beginning of this season or any season that I would see at St James's Park, Micah Richards and Carragher singing behind the desk with the Geordie fans, Geordie boys, they're having a laugh and joining in. Gusto. I mean, it was just amazing before your eyes, and that's lovely. You know, welcome lads. You know, you've got Geordie boys. Yes, well, I didn't want to use that, but yes, that's what they were singing, and they were really into it. I mean, they really were into it. It wasn't just a smiley pretend for the cameras. They were giving it full blast, as was the lady that was doing the commentary, which was fantastic. And the bit that Neil mentions about Carragher, yeah, I agree. Carragher went up 100-fold in my estimation. To say that publicly on his main television channel, what he did that's so wrong stuff, it was really, really nice, but better than nice. It was fantastic. So, and it shows what our club's about, what our fans are about, what the whole Newcastle United vibe is at the moment, that everybody's on song. And once people get involved in it, they can't get away from it. Neil's absolutely right. I mean, for 20 odd years, I was an admissions tutor in a significant department in the university. At the end of each year, if I could get 60 jobs in Newcastle, none of them would have gone home. Don't care where they come from. None of them would have gone home. They would all stayed in Newcastle. And the net result is I have friends all over the world, particularly in Greece, who welcome me with open arms, even now, even though I've been retired as long as I have. And my social media is littered with people from that part of the world and other parts of the world saying, how are you? You know, we've heard you weren't well. You know, it's so touching. You know, I've had a problem with my eyes. I got an email from a lad in Greece. I'm not going to mention his name because it's not right, who said, heard you got a problem with your eyes. Do you remember what my dad does? And I said, no, I don't remember what your dad does. He's the chief ophthalmic surgeon in Athens Hospital.
Wow.
And we will fly you to Athens. My dad will do your eye and we'll fly you back, and it'll cost you nothing.
Incredible. Never ceases to amaze me.
No, it's just unbelievable. And he's just one example, and so many others. As I say, if I could have got 60 jobs every year, none of them would have gone home. They'd all stayed in Newcastle. So, and once somebody gets that vibe, they're not going anywhere. And then that thing with Carragher and Micah Richards just showed it. Micah Richards is well and truly indoctrinated by Shearer, mind. You can see that.
Yeah, definitely.
But so what? You know, so what? We'll love it. We'll love it.
Just a welcome. I can see a few new names in the chat. Always great to see new names. Good to have Tom Maguire in. Just saying that Schmeichel did dodge out of the way when the
I did. When Dan was doing
it. And Danang Triagono, thank you for your message. PSG still in the transition with the new gaffer and new player. Dortmund being a feeder club, sold Haaland, Bellingham, and God knows who else on the list. I think we have a good chance to go through. I would definitely agree with you on that. But good to see new people involved in there. Please subscribe to the channel. Okay, got to finish slightly earlier than usual. I'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow. We're just going to remind you that Newcastle play West Ham today. There's no TV coverage of this in the UK. It's a 2 o'clock Sunday slot because West Ham were playing in Europe on Thursday night, of course. We are aware of some problems with receiving both paper and digital tickets, West Ham say, for the away sections. For anyone affected, a note posted outside the St James's Park box office on Saturday advised the following. Any West Ham queries, please call 0191 201 8458 between 11 and 2 on Sunday. That's today, of course. And West Ham also put out something via NUST. West Ham will deal with away ticket queries from the window 20 at the London Stadium box office on Sunday. Bring photo ID and a supporter number. A copy of the sale confirmation email from Newcastle will help. As far as team news is concerned, Anthony Gordon is serving a 1-match suspension. And obviously, we know Joe Willock, Harvey Barnes, and Sven Botman are all unavailable. But Callum Wilson and Joe Linton should feature for Newcastle at some point today, which is great news. And as for West Ham, Mikel Antonio and Aaron Cresswell are both doubtful. Peter Banks is the referee, and Andy Madeley's on VAR. And just because you usually do the dice, Mitch, give us your prediction.
I take by the odd goal in 3. 2-1 us.
Okay, I'm going 2-1 as well. And just a reminder what your prediction was on Friday night, George.
I've been 2-0 all week, Steve, 2-0.
2-0. That's great.
Yeah.
Been fantastic. Thanks to all the mods. Thanks to everybody in the chat. As always, played a great part. And we will be back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with the Fans Forum. Until then, take care. How are you?
Good to see you. See you. Bye.